quick, man. Fantastic.
Yes.
Good morning. Welcome to the community briefing. My name is Gregory Sneed. Our guest today is here. All of our reps are here. Our correspondents. We got all four of us. That doesn't always happen, but we got the full suite. So we are ready. Welcome to the community briefing. Today is the 2nd of April in the year 2026. The first quarter is gone. So if you had goals for the year, hopefully you're 25% to that. And if you're ahead, congratulations. And if you're running behind, well, you got to catch up so you hit your goals for the second quarter and for your year. My name is Gregory Sneed, and I am President, CEO of Lifesaver Financial Services. I help my clients get back on speaking terms with their money. It's now my pleasure to welcome the virtual queen. Let's see, April. I have to come up with something. So the virtual queen for our community briefing, Miss Crystal Mitchell.
Welcome, guys. Glad that you all are here. Today is April 2nd, so we're zooming past through this year. Maybe we can zoom past the next 3 years and we'll be on the other side, and this will all been a nightmare. I'm Crystal Mitchell. I am the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars, the inspiration behind the community briefing. I'm glad that you all come out here every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. We so appreciate you. This platform was set up specifically to make sure you're meeting our leaders and stakeholders and being connected to what's going on, not just in our community, but in our entire world, because it's kind of important to do that nowadays. We have a fantastic panel, which I will get to in a minute, panel of co-hosts, but we also are monetarily sponsored by and supported by Recycling Black Dollars, as well as the BBA. And we're monetarily sponsored by Los Angeles LDC, Southern California Edison, Wells Fargo Bank, SoCal Gas, PCR, Urban Excellence, and anyone else that wants to support us. We are always welcome. We always welcome it. And I'm going to, our team here is obviously me and Greg. You just met them. Mr. Stephen Turner, who is our producer and couldn't live without him. And Miss Robin Billups. And before I turn it over to her, there was something that I'm going to ask you guys. You can put it in the chat. There was something that was very significant, a win for us, the people, yesterday, and it pertains to us. And so if you guys know what that is, put that in the chat. And now with that, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Robin.
Greetings, everybody. Glad to be here. Robin Billups with the Billups Group. My word for this week, as we enter this resurrection week, a very critical time in the Christian life. I'm not looking to offend anyone, but our vote counts, guys. You know, if you don't understand that, look at what's happening across the states and look at what they're trying to detract from us. And look at what we've been able to accomplish in these places where people are showing up at the polls. So vote early, take somebody with you, and know that you're voting for rights and resources, not personalities. Don't take your feelings into the poll. Take in your pocket and your future into the poll, because at the end of the day, we are protecting democracy every time we go in there and vote. So please vote for someone. Educate yourself so that you can vote for someone who's going to benefit not only you, but your future generations. I'm going to kick it over to Greg so we can go ahead and get started and hear from this fabulous presenter.
Thank you, Crystal and Robin. So welcome again today. Our guest today is Thomas Henning, and he is joining us. He is a PhD candidate at Caltech, working at the intersection of computational neuroscience, behavioral economics, and AI. And as you can see by his virtual background, his thoughts are out of this world, universal, planetary, and etc. He studies human AI interaction using experimental methods, large language models, which is what the AI is, and biometric neuroimaging data. That's a mouthful. Previously, he was a structured credit derivatives trader at Goldman Sachs. So he has been at Caltech in as a neuroscience PhD candidate. PhD is piled higher and deeper, is what I've heard, and graduate teaching assistant. He was working at Goldman Sachs, education director of philosophy, and also a graduate from Arizona State University. They've been in the NCAA tournament a little bit, doing a little something something there. We have no idea where he's from, where he grew up. So please join us in welcoming to the virtual stage, Mr. Thomas Henning.
Thank you guys for having me. I grew up in Philly, so
Ah,
there's the answer there. So I'm a Philadelphia guy. Go Birds to anyone that happens to be watching.
boo, I'm a Giants fan.
I'm sorry to hear that, but
Cardinals fan.
but I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really happy to kind of join the discussion.
All right. Let's see. You said Eagles fan. Okay. Thanks for joining us today. And so the floor is yours. Generally, our guests do sort of a 15, 20 minutes. So you told us where you grew up in Philly, but how did you get into the field you're in? What are you currently doing? How is your work going to help us in terms of our community? And what words of wisdom and advice would you have to share in terms of folks making use of AI and a whole platform as AI really starts to venture into some of the neurosciences of our thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, before we, jump into some of the work, how about I kind of walk through the background? So I grew up, outside Philadelphia, big Eagles fan, big Phillies fan. Do have some Lakers blood in me, so it's good that I'm out in LA to get that excuse going. So I went to school out in Arizona State, and I studied finance and mathematics. And the main thought process there was to, go and be like a trader on Wall Street. And so, I had a pretty windy path to do so. I actually, got my Goldman internship my sophomore year. And through that process, I actually was in the back office, actually in Salt Lake, Utah, to start my career at Goldman Sachs. And so,
Interesting.
for people that are familiar with the Wall Street industry, there's a big difference between, back office Salt Lake, Utah, Goldman Sachs, and front office trading in New York, Goldman Sachs. And so navigating how to kind of get them to send me from Utah internship as a sophomore to the internship as a trader, actually on the desk that I used to cover for back when I was in Utah, actually was a process that I can, maybe go into maybe some other time. But we managed to do that, then started that career at Goldman in the trading scenario. Ended up getting a full-time job offer. And in that period of time, after I had received the full-time offer, but before I had started my career, I started to kind of explore kind of my interests a little bit more. And so during that period, I actually had gotten hit by a car. And so, I had a pretty near-death life experience, and that kind of reopened my mindset to kind of looking at, what is it that I actually want to do with my life? Obviously, achieving that dream of becoming a Wall Street trader at Goldman was something that I, was very proud of. And, coming from a school like Arizona State to Goldman Sachs, this was something that happened, once every, decade to kind of get to the
Yeah.
trading floor. And especially when it comes to people that look like us. Although
Mhm.
surprisingly, the last person before me that had gone from Arizona State to Goldman Sachs trading for also happened to look like us. And so there was a
Wow.
pretty decent pipeline. I think at the time when I started at Goldman, there was only 9 or 10 black traders across the entire
Mhm.
firm. There's a few, they had a lot more sales members, they had a lot more bankers, but specifically, traders, I think there was only 9 or 10 of us. And so it was a pretty small contingent. But during that period of when I had gone back to ASU after I had secured my full-time job, I started to realize that I want to figure out what it is that I want to do. I want to learn. And so I ended up taking a bunch more math classes, and I also took this class on what I was called judgment and decision making. And what that ended up
Mhm.
actually being was neuroscience, but applied to economics in the economic field. And I fell in love. I was like, oh wow, this is incredibly interesting. I'd always been very interested in this field called behavioral economics, which is kind of applying psychology concepts to economic decision making. And the idea of doing that one step deeper at the neuronal level, I found to be very fascinating. And
Mhm.
so, at the time, I had a great job at Goldman. I wasn't about to go and, throw that all away, but I kind of in my mind said, you know what, this is maybe what I really want to do. This is the type of things that I want to learn. And I think this is where the world is going to be moving towards. So,
Mhm.
put that in the back of my mind, the idea of potentially going to grad school. So after I started my career at Goldman, I really enjoyed that role. And then, but at the time, I was also still trying to figure out how can I become competitive for graduate school.
Mhm.
I didn't have a ton of research experience, and for top programs, if you want to go into a PhD program, they really want you to be doing a lot of research as undergraduates, in your bachelor's degree, not just, have a great job. And so what I did
Mhm.
is I actually found professors and researchers on Twitter, which is now
Wow.
X. And so I actually enjoyed a lot of Twitter profiles. And so there used to be this really strong community of academics, professors and PhD students that would just tweet. They would tweet about their days, they would tweet about their lives, tweet jokes, tweet about their research. And so I started engaging in that community, met with a few professors, and actually one of the professors actually, I developed a relationship, said we could do research remote. So mind you, I'm working 70, 80 hours a week on the Goldman Sachs trading floor. And now I have this professor from the University of Duke saying, you know what, we can do remote research. And so I said, yeah, why not? I'll figure it out. I'll find time on the weekends. I'll find time, at 2 a.m., whatever it takes to get a little bit more of that experience set so I can start to figure out, is this something that I want to do? Through that, and then of course COVID came and hit, and the life of a trader during the COVID pandemic was really, really astonishing. I'm 21, 22 years old, calling up hedge fund managers saying, you owe us millions of dollars and I need the money by the end of the week. Meanwhile, I'm also on the other side of the phone calling my mom saying I don't know how I'm going to do my laundry because the laundromat is closed and I'm by myself in New York City. And so there's this dual aspect where on one hand I am a trader for Goldman Sachs, calling up people that are millionaires, hundreds of millionaires, billionaires, making sure that I'm defending the risk profile of the firm. On the other hand, I'm a 22-year-old kid trying to understand how to navigate when the world is crashing down, and you're far away from my mom. And so that also, but through that period, working remotely, it actually gave me more chances to kind of like, removing that commute, removing some of the aspects of FaceTime to actually do a little bit more of the research. So from
Mhm.
that period, I also then met my current professor on Twitter as well. Recognized that he was hard to reach over email, and so instead of emailing him, I just tweeted at him. I tweeted at him when I would email him, and he followed me. He slid in my DMs. We set up a Zoom call. We talked about research. He told me I should apply to Caltech. I ended up applying to Caltech, went through the interview process, ended up getting in, and then decided, you know what, I think this is the career jump that I think I want to make. So then I went to Caltech, started with the idea that I would study this neuroscience applied to economics. And then, of course, over the last few years, the AI boom occurred. ChatGPT was released, I think, in my second year of my PhD. And I started to really, really get interested in trying to understand not only how these AI models are built and deployed, but also how people are actually interacting with them and how AI models actually compare in their performance to human beings. And so I
Mhm.
kind of pivoted my work. So I have a few main pieces of work, one of which is looking at deep fake detection. And so for people that aren't familiar, deep fakes are AI faces that are supposed to mimic human faces, but are entirely synthetically or fakely generated, and trying to see, can people's subconscious, for a non-technical explanation, can their brain data actually outperform their conscious behavior? So people can't consciously tell, but can we build a model from their brains to actually figure out, can their brains tell? And so that's been a big project that I've been working on to the PhD. It hasn't fully been shown one way or the other, but those are things that we're working on. Another thing is what happens when you deploy these ChatGPT type models to make trades? If you had a market that was filled with all AI agents, what do those markets end up looking like? How do those compare to humans? Do they create some of the bubbles and wild market swings that we're going through right now? Yes or no? How much do they differ? Then can we figure out, can we make these agents, can these AI models act more human-like if we want to or do we not want to? Things of that nature. That's actually a great point. We did find that different people's brains were better than others, but that's something that we can talk about further. And so that's kind of what I've been doing now, is looking at figuring out this new world that's coming, where people are going to be interacting not only with other human beings as we're doing right now, but also with agents and AI systems. And how are we going to actually engage with them? How are people going to actually feel? Are we going to feel when we have an AI, if we have an AI manager, is that going to change how we feel about our work and about our lives? Is that going to change how confident we are when we're doing our jobs? Those are the types of problems that I, want to be solving, and those are the things that we're starting to look at here at Caltech.
Thomas, man, this is some deep stuff, but it's so current. And let me just say this up top. We're going to need you to come back regularly. We really are, because it's a lot to take in. Yesterday I was watching, I think it might have been on CBS this morning, and the guy was talking about um, how we're moving towards, what do they call it? Not being human, not humans, not driving stuff, and that these AI bots and what have you are starting to think on their own, you
Yep.
know. And the guy actually worked in this industry, and he decided to write a book and alert people on the fact that if we don't course correct now, we don't know what's down the pike, right? But let's back up for a minute. Tell me about you as a little boy, because when I'm listening to all of these touch points in your 20s that you had, what was the impetus and the driver? Because again, we are, a lot of us are parents and grandparents, and we're seasoned in our careers, but we're also got generational responsibility. So I want to hear a little bit about you as a kid growing up, and how can we relay that to our future generations, because we need to build the team, the bench that you're going to need.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I actually talk to my mom almost daily, and I talk to my dad probably just as much. If you ask them that question, they would have always said, crazy, and then they would have said it very quickly, driven as well. And where that drive and that obsession had been changed. So I wasn't
Mhm.
actually the greatest student growing up. I wasn't, your straight A student. I didn't like to turn in homework. I didn't like to study for tests. And so it
It's like a
certainly wasn't.
sounds like a typical boy's son to me. Okay, I have two
Exactly.
sons.
But it certainly wasn't a, nerdiest kid on the block, studying all day type scenario. I was convinced I was going to be an NFL player, probably longer than I should have been. I probably the writing was on the wall when I was, not 6'8", 300 pounds. Like my younger brother, for instance, is 6'7", 240. D1 sprinter. Like, he had the genes. I'm not quite that size. And so it might have been, a sign that maybe I should have started focusing on my studies a little bit earlier than I did. But we got here, right? We're doing the
Yeah,
PhD now, we're
yeah.
managing. But I always was very focused on trying to improve myself and trying to
Hmm.
understand how people think, trying to
Hmm.
understand like how people think relation to myself. Um,
Hmm.
you know, I was focused on understanding psychology and like a way to just
Hmm.
to, at the time was to make friends and to try to
Yeah.
figure out like how you can understand when people are lying to you and when people are telling you the truth. I always was trying to learn how to work out better and more efficiently. How can I be, the best receiver on the football team?
Hmm.
Always was thinking about how to do business. I tried
Hmm.
to always recruit my friends to do little startups and build websites of sorts. I think a lot of that came from, watching and observing my parents.
Hmm.
My mom was very entrepreneurial. She's worked on a lot of startups. My dad now runs a cleaning business. But
Hmm.
both of them had done a lot of work in the corporate space, both of them at MBAs. Watching my grandparents, my grandfather was a realtor and owned his own realtor business. My other
Mm-hmm.
grandfather did a lot of great work in the Pentagon and actually had his picture hanging as one of the leaders that are honored in the Pentagon, which,
Mm-hmm.
as you may know, we're unsure of which if that is still hanging up
It's still
there.
there. Maybe they'll
Um,
give it to the. Maybe they'll send the picture to the family.
yeah, but it certainly
Not
was.
put it in the basement somewhere, right?
Yeah, that would be ideal, right? But up until this administration, he had been honored in the Pentagon, and so there had been this family of excellence, and it wasn't always that and it was very rarely that I was be talking to my parents about what they were doing day to day and the fact that they were working. I didn't talk to my grandfather about his work, and in with the Navy, or my other grandfather, with his work in regards to the realtor business, but just seeing them working
Yes.
and just being
Yes.
exposed to my parents telling me about stocks early on
Mm-hmm.
and just the idea of what an entrepreneur is. Like there was this game that my dad showed me. It was called Sim Entrepreneur. And it was like a video game where you pretended to build a business. And so I'm 12 years old and I'm loving playing this video game, talking about how to build out a business, where I'd play these other games where I'd be managing a city or something of those lines, and just thinking about things strategically as a manager at a young age. And then of course, making sure that I had lots of friends and being very social.
So how do you go from Philly? You're an East Coast kid. How do you go from Philly to Arizona? How did you select Arizona as your university?
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, the simplest, the first answer was I really didn't want to stay near home. I
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to kind of explore a different part of the
Mm-hmm.
world,
Mm-hmm.
certainly a different part of the country. My mindset was I can always come back to the East Coast
Mm-hmm.
where my parents are connected, where I have lots of friends. But if I don't try to expand
Yeah.
my wings and try a different part of the world, like I may never. And then I got a full ride, and so
Mm-hmm.
that certainly helped a lot. I got a full academic scholarship to ASU through the National Achievement program, which is now
Mm-hmm.
defunct, which is very disappointing. It was a national thing, very similar to the National Merit for African
Mm-hmm.
American students that performed very well in the PSATs.
Mm-hmm.
And so ASU offered anyone that was a finalist in that group. I don't know if Philly was a great idea, but they said that anyone that got was a National Achievement, National Hispanic, or National Merit finalist got a full tuition scholarship to Arizona State,
Excellent.
regardless whether you're in or
Excellent.
out of state, and so to their honors college. And so I ended up enrolling with their honors college, and I honestly think that was the best decision of my life.
Okay. You spoke earlier about, let's just talk about where you are right now. I have a crawl in my cap about Goldman Sachs because I worked secondary market. I was an underwriter in secondary market with
Oh,
Drexel when they created the junk bond
oh yeah, Drexel
product.
Burnham, yeah.
Yeah, but I was a commercial real estate underwriter, and then they sent him to the country club jail, and Goldman Sachs and Lehman came up with these no doc, low doc products and kind of put us all the way into the 2008 debauchery that we went through. So let's talk a little bit about where you are with Caltech, and let's talk a little bit about and just give us a little snapshot of how that's going. And then I've never I don't have the ability to apply to become a PhD. So we need to hear a little bit about that process as well.
Yeah, so what I did at Goldman was we did structured loans. And so there's
Hmm.
this world called private credit, which is the ones that
Hmm.
we focused on, which were, after the '08 crisis, there were a lot of regulatory constraints put on banks on what types of businesses and at what types of conditions that they could lend them to. And
Hmm.
so, pre '08, banks were doing the predominant amount of lending to, let's say, mid-market businesses. So and when we
Hmm.
say mid to small market businesses, we mean businesses that are worth less than $50 million. So
Yeah, correct.
mid-sized toward compared to Apples and Googles of the world, but not mid-sized compared to the job. If we had $50 million businesses, I think we would not be viewing ourselves as mid-sized business owners in the same
Hmm.
way that Goldman Sachs would view us as. And so what stepped into place were funds. So private
Hmm.
credit, hedge funds, private credit, mutual funds, things of those nature, private equity firms that are now
Hmm.
doing these lending that banks used to do. What
Correct.
we did at Goldman is we lent to those lenders.
Yeah.
So if you think about how mortgages work, where you'll get a mortgage from the bank, oftentimes those banks will get effectively mortgages on a bunch of your mortgages. And
Yeah.
this is a concept of called leverage, and it's a way for them to turn a mortgage that they get paid 4% into something that's
Hmm.
6% or 7% yield. And so
Hmm.
this is like that process is what we would do. And so if the private credit fund, if you didn't pay your money and the private credit fund didn't pay us, we would then own your mortgage, or we would then
Correct.
and then potentially own your house, but
Yeah.
through numerous mediator steps. What I do now at Caltech is, I'm in my, hopefully, let's knock on wood some, my last few months here, finishing up my PhD program. Going to be one of the first Black students to graduate in my division. I think, from what I've heard, the second, if not,
So
the
what's
third.
graduation date? Because we need to one, pray you up, and two, we might be able to attend.
Yeah, so June 14th is the scheduled. I still need to schedule my final PhD defense, and so I need to defend sometime in May, and that's the plan. Of course, things might end up going towards the summer, etc. But the plan right now is to defend and to walk mid-June. And
Okay.
so at Caltech, go ahead.
So I was going to say, and we need to understand what the PhD is about.
Yeah, so the PhD is different than I think almost any type of other higher education. So a
I
bachelor's.
mean, I'm talking about yours in particular.
Oh, so we're doing neuroscience. So,
Okay.
I'm finishing my PhD is going to be in social decision neuroscience, which at Caltech is effectively computational neuroscience applied to social decisions. And social decisions mean economic decisions, psychology decisions, anything pretty much that involves humans.
Mhm.
And so that's going to be my PhD specialty.
Wow. Wow. I'm a little blown away. I have to take a minute and take all of that. It's like, a lot of us are former bankers, and we get what one of the beautiful things that you said that I really value is the fact that you worked in the back office, right? When you learn from the back end versus the front end, you really learn that industry.
Yeah, you learn the
So
whole.
how are you applying that to what you're writing your dissertation about, and how is that going to take you forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing of like, starting in the back end and then ending up in the front end is you really get an appreciation for constraints.
Hmm.
Right? There's a lot of aspects about the front end aspect of our business that we could
Hmm.
have grown. We could have made a lot more deals. We could have made a lot more money, but we were constrained based off our operational capacity,
And
which is not something
regulations.
that is obvious to an external source. In Heinz, and
Hmm.
at a high level as a trader, you think buy high, sell low. If I can make money
Hmm.
on this spread difference, I can make money. But you often need to take into account when you're a business leader or a manager of what is the actual human capital costs.
Hmm.
Right. And so one of the things that's interesting about AI is that's dramatically changing what the human capital costs are. And so what AI is potentially allowing a lot of these companies to do and why they are so excited is it can potentially create what had been scalable from like, software has always been scalable. It can now all of a sudden make intellectual capital somewhat
Hmm.
scalable. So some of the
Hmm.
jobs that used to be, bespoke, like writing a specific email to a customer that used to require that, an individual thinks about who that customer is, how that customer needs to, be communicated to, can now be done with AI. Tutors can potentially be done with AI. Understanding how can I transform content to
Hmm.
maximize different people's way that they think, the different way people learn. Things that we always used to do implicitly, transforming different types of communication, different types of understanding to make sure that the person I'm talking to understands. That's a very human concept. It's what
Hmm.
managers do of like translating the boss's idea to all the workers. A lot of those things can now potentially be done with AI.
Yeah.
And so understanding the value that AI provides, not just in what stocks to pick, which is something that I
Yeah.
think is, but more so on how do we make the processes that allow us to make money on these stocks, like the fact that you need to settle trades, the fact that you need to confirm trades, the fact that you need to make sure that your systems are logging all of the different transactions, things that aren't always obvious in regards to just buying a stock that people on the front end
Hmm.
only don't sometimes only think about. That's actually potentially where the AI is going to be most useful. and actually
Mhm.
automating a lot of those types of processes. And so
Okay.
understanding that that is where people are thinking about has actually informed what are the types of things that I care about when I'm thinking about what research questions do I want to answer, and then what potentially down the line business questions that I want to answer.
Excellent. So, once June 14th or whatever that date ends up being, because it's going to be done within the second or the third
Yeah.
quarter at a minimum. Where do you see yourself going? What's your plan?
Yeah, I'm planning to be an entrepreneur. I'm starting a company. I'm building it out now, talking to people, getting initial clients, talking to investors. We have a team, we have a product. That's the plan. Going to start my company.
Renee has a question, but I need you to give us a little bit more of that. Renee, get off of mute. You got to give us a little bit more of that. You're
Yeah.
starting a company. What's the name of it? Do you have
Yeah,
a
so
website?
I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Saracen AI. And what that is, it's a workforce training and compliance
Mhm.
company. And so what we do is we take compliance training documents, really long, complicated technical documents. We use AI to transform those to match individuals' learning styles and experience. And the way
Mhm.
that does is it lowers mistakes, it makes people onboard faster, and it pretty much saves a lot of the calls. When your workers on your job and they don't know what to do, they can now interface with our system and get an answer. And so they don't have to call your boss, which frees up people's time.
That is great.
I am
Again,
super impressed. I
it's
mean, if this is the future of our young people, our young adults, I am feeling so much more confident now. Now we just got to
yes.
find a world where you guys can do all you want to do all by yourself without having all this interaction from folks over 70, with the exception of us.
That. Hey, I want to be interactive. I'll carry the water.
And then with the exception of us. But I am super, I'm sorry. I had to, I work with children all the time. And I'm always worried about what is going to happen to them because the current establishment doesn't seem to think that they're a valuable asset. And so for all of the professors that stopped on Twitter to engage with you, that gives me a better sense of what the future can hold and that there are people out here that really understand that it's not about us, it's about you guys, and that you guys have to be shaped to make sure that this world works for you. So kudos to you, Thomas. Your parents did an excellent job, man, of raising you. That's all I'm gonna say. All right. That was my part.
Thomas, there's one of my business partners, Tom Weber, is out of Philly, and I Philly. He's out of Philly too. I'll introduce you to him. But
That'd be
Renee
fantastic.
is one of our entrepreneurial correspondents, and she's just fabulous. And she's actually had her nephews on early on with their own business. So Renee, you want to open it up? You on mute, girl.
Thank you. I'm excited, just as excited as everybody else that you're
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Today, in my company meeting, we do cost segregation and other strategic tax solutions. Anyway, we were talking about how we should answer, not us be the queen or the king, but let the client feel that they are, and giving
Mhm.
them information about the next step and the next step, and letting their accountant know that we're doing this and on and on. And I would just love to push a button and all that just come out. So I think what you're doing is fabulous. It's fabulous. So maybe we'll be your client.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there we
yeah,
go.
yeah. Joseph, I know, Joseph is another one of our ex-bankers and he's a business advisor. I want to kind of open it up because this, I could question you all just to get on board with all that you've layered here, Joseph.
I don't have a whole lot to add or to say, except that I know you're launching a business. That's something that we do all day, every day. So we are a resource for you, and we can
I
connect
was
you
going
to
to
other
tell him, yeah.
resources. We can be of any help. I'll make sure my contact information's in the chat. Feel free to get in touch with us.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Thomas, make sure your contact information is in the chat. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, what I like about him, he's been talking directly to us, fully engaged. But this is where youth comes in. He's actually looking at this chat box, responding as he's presenting. And a lot of times, Thomas, we have people that we have to have them to bring somebody with them, or one of us has to be there to help make sure that what's put in the chat gets responded to. So thank you again for that. Um, I the other question that I had is, when you look at let's step back for a minute. You have, I call them buckets of folks, right? So you have folks like us who want to stay progressive and relevant and involved, and we're trying to stay on top of stuff. So I'm looking for you to give us some guidance and some feedback on some of the things, or some of the books, or some of the places that we need to make sure we plugged into, so that we can keep up what you're doing, so that we can support what you're doing. And again, I got 6 grandbabies, so I'm trying to lay tracks for those
Yeah.
guys.
So I actually maybe have the perfect thing. So starting at Caltech, I've up until this last year had been the president of called BSEC, which is the Black Scientists and Engineers of Caltech. Pretty much BSU, but combine it with the grad students and the postdoctoral students. And so we started
That's
actually
nice.
a conference that is to bring Black PhDs, professors, postdocs, researchers to Caltech's campus for them to talk about their research in a TED Talk way. So it's our community, our greatest minds around the country. We're talking people from Stanford, Harvard, Caltech, USC, UCLA, Cal Poly Pomona, all these elite places. And they come to Caltech's campus and they give research across their entire STEM fields, your physics, economics, computer science, biology, chemistry. And we actually report those and we post them online. So
Mm-hmm.
actually, let me send you, it's called CBAS, Conference for Emerging Black Academics in STEM, and it's occurring on the 12th, the 11th, the 10th and 11th of April. So 2 weeks from now, week and a half from now, coming to Caltech's campus, Black professors talking about their research with the design for it to be done for an interdisciplinary audience. And what I always find is that not only are they not only top tier researchers, but something that they do often better than any other research group that I've ever been a part of is that their communication skills are beyond top notch. There's something with our community. We know how to talk to people.
Yeah.
And so because of that, you actually can actually absorb a lot more than if you go to, maybe a standard academic conference in a field. So that's one way. The other is you got to be joining LinkedIn. That's where a lot of this new blue things have moved. There's also Blue Sky, where now a lot of the academics talk about things as well, although a lot of them have moved from Twitter, Blue Sky onto LinkedIn. And so now you're going to see a lot more professors in different spaces posting their papers, posting their research on LinkedIn. And so that's a
That's
really great
perfect.
resource as well.
I've been some years ago, and these guys have heard me say this. I was listening to NPR, and they had interviewed this little 12-year-old, and he had been on LinkedIn since he was 10 years old. And he said if he is internships, mentors, alliances, and information. So again, thank you for these places where we can actually find this information, and we can actually participate, and we can actually educate ourselves.
I had a LinkedIn since probably when I was 12 as well. My mom set me up with a LinkedIn. She had all her friends and all her coworkers add me. She used to sometimes take me into work meetings to introduce me to her bosses. So I got very
Mhm.
comfortable at a young age talking to, senior executives of billion-dollar companies, 13, 14 years old, put on a little suit, would chat with them just about things. I didn't know anything, but they would talk to me and I would get a sense and I started to recognize that, they're human beings just like myself. And yeah,
Yes, that is
Right.
so critical. That is so very critical, because I think people get intimidated by titles and stature. You know, it's interesting to me though for you to go to Arizona State. I went to Mizzou, and my husband he went to Purdue, and he used to always say, "Well, nobody knows anything about Mizzou." I said, "It's
Mhm.
okay. That's what you think.
That's right.
That's what you think, right? So when you said Arizona State, I was like, talk to us a little bit about as we look at our future generations and when they're looking for schools. I've always seen it as a very entrepreneurial environment.
Very much so.
That's what I've seen at Arizona State.
I think it was the greatest decision of my life. So I actually, in my college experience as an undergraduate, I got rejected. I applied to 12 schools. I got rejected by 10 of them.
Mhm.
And so it was a really brutal experience. I applied to UPenn and Duke. And, it's funny that I applied to Duke as an undergrad, and then I also applied there in grad school. Didn't get in undergrad, and then turned them down when it came time for PhD time. And so there was a bit of a full circle moment, and I certainly got a chuckle out of that. But I
Yeah,
really did struggle when it came to, applying to different schools. And Arizona State had like a 95, 98% acceptance rate. So it's certainly not a very exclusive school. On the honors college, 30%, and so there was a lot more exclusivity there. But I think what was so great about Arizona State is that, like, because of its a focus on inclusion, you got
hmm
so many different types of people and so many different types of thinking in such a crowded environment. And then on top of that, they had a great way of funneling the fact that they were such a large institution, funneling elite resources to elite students. And so there were lots of ways, for instance, there was an entire investment banking society at ASU
yeah,
where they taught
yeah.
us how to cold email people and how to network, not just how to do the banking, but how do you backdoor your way into some of these elite institutions? The skill set of knowing to DM the person on Twitter instead of shooting them an email were skills that I developed and learned from my peers and from professors at Arizona State that I would not have gotten if I had gone to Duke. Because if I had gone to Duke, I would have just needed to get good grades, and then I would have been able to apply to Goldman Sachs, and I would have had a good chance of getting that internship. As opposed to what I had to do, which was get to Goldman Sachs back office in Utah and wake up at 5 a.m. and call the traders on the trading floor just so that they could maybe say, oh, I like this guy, to send me to somebody else so they could maybe push my resume forward
Mm-hmm.
past, the HR lady that told me going from back office Utah to front office trading was impossible. This is the HR person told me it was impossible, and I had to figure out ways to navigate around that. Those skills, which I think are arguably the most important skills that you can develop, were skills that I developed at Arizona State. On top of which, there are elite students there. One of my great friends, she's an MIT PhD. I have other
hmm
friends that are bankers and traders at, Citibank and other elite programs. I have buddies that have gone to Y Combinator and have raised millions of dollars that I text all day, every day, talking about what run I did today. I have a group chat where one of us is a banker used to be a banker at Citibank. The other just raised $2 million+ for his startup. And we tweet and we message each other about our workouts for the day. And they're all Arizona State caliber people. And so you can really find talent in any of these institutions. And if you want to go and you want to work hard.
hmm and the other thing I'll say to you too, just on a personal note, I just love your look because you're looking like a brother, okay? With all of with this big brain. And the beautiful thing that you said at the top of the conversation, the reason why I asked you, what I appreciate you sharing your family life. I appreciate you sharing who you were as a young man. I appreciate you sharing the struggle. But what I heard is persistence. What I heard is resilience. What I heard is just keep pushing the boulder up the hill. Because at one point, it might come back down a little bit, but if you keep pushing it, you're going to get to the top of the hill. And we intrigue this whole group right here entreat you because we talk to a lot of young folks. We talk to a lot of people every week. Every week we have different presenters on here. You kind of blown my mind to some degree, and Yolanda, who referred me, and Farron, who referred me to you, they were like, Robin, you have to talk to Thomas. You have to bring him on. He has to tell us a little bit more about the conference, and then we're going to wrap it up
Yeah.
because go ahead.
So I want to talk a little bit about the conference. I want to say one thing about the resilience. I don't think, I think that is absolutely right, that you have to keep going. You have to figure out when people tell you no, but it's certainly
Mm-hmm.
not something that is like, I'm not, indomitable. I get nervous, I get afraid. And that's where I think the community, you asked about how can you support your parents. I called my mom this morning talking about, I don't know if I'm going to be able to graduate. I don't know if I can build this business. I don't know if I can handle this. I talked to my grandparents. I talked to my parents. So it's an entire support network that gives me the
Yes.
confidence to take this step. And, and so I can't really, emphasize that enough that, as you talk about how can you empower your children and how can you empower your grandkids is being that source to say, keep going because as you know, especially with people like us, the world doesn't want us to keep going, and they will figure out different ways and different excuses to make sure that these doors feel closed and locked.
Yeah.
And so you
Yeah.
have to sometimes remember that they've been closed and locked for decades and centuries. And for
So
our
what's new?
grandparents, my
What's new?
grandparents got golf balls hit at him as a kid, and then he ended up getting his master's from University of Pennsylvania and living this great life. So now to talk about the conference, and it is so we hold this conference. This is our fourth year of installment.
Oh, okay.
So far, it's been funded exclusively through Caltech's generosity, but we're looking to kind of actually get more community sponsors and more in community engagement. We have social media handles. It's called the Conference for Emerging Black Academics in STEM. The acronym is CBAS, CEBAS. If you Google us, CBAS Conference, we're going to be showing up and you're going to be able to find our TikToks, our Instagrams, our LinkedIns, our Facebook, where we're posting some of the videos that we get, not just of the videos of all of the talks, which we have on YouTube, but also some of the videos of the food. I mean, we're making jerk chicken and stuff like that. We're eating good, jollof rice. We're doing good. We should get some actual grilled sea bass, but right? Until we get the community sponsorships, we can't afford it. So, come in here, you leaders, donate, and then we can get some grilled sea bass for these young great minds.
or the sea bass. Thomas, are you in town in June, like late June?
I should be.
I teach a youth organization, a group called Biz Camp, and I do it every summer. I've been doing it now for 17 years, and we teach kids how to be entrepreneurs. I would love for you to come in and speak to our kids.
Love it.
I mean, we have kids that have been in our program in the past that haven't been able to find a job. In fact, one of our interns that's going to be there, she's been out of work for a year, and she has her BA in marketing because they don't know how to navigate through looking for a job other than just submitting resumes through LinkedIn, I mean, through Indeed and all those things. But that doesn't, I mean, a resume is that you can't get,
It never
you
works.
cannot jump out of onto the computer and say, hey, I'm that person. So they need those skill sets. And I would love there's a schedule. I put a flyer in the chat about our program. We do 2 programs a year. We're right now doing our Biz Institute, and the kids compete in competitions in order to get seed money to start their businesses. And we go through that process. And one of my most important things that I think I do on this planet. And I would love for you to talk to our kids. I think it would be so beneficial for them to hear how you use the internet for the good, other than just using it for TikTok and things of that nature.
Of course.
And I'm going to finish with the fact that this weekend I was at the Black Women's a salute to Black women, or to women, for Women's History Week, which is the BBA's event this weekend. Miss Emma was honored, so I had to give her a big clap. But I was talking to a young lady, and she was 17. She didn't look 17. She looked 12. And I was recruiting her for my program this summer. And her mom said, oh my God, because her mother had been in classes of mine. She goes, that would be awesome. I said, so are you interested in entrepreneurship? She says, no. I said, oh, okay. Well, let's come at this a different way. And I asked her, what is it you want to do? And she said, and I asked her why. And she says, because entrepreneurship is too hard. It's too much work and too hard. I said, oh, so what is it you want to do? She goes, I want to be an actress. Oh my God. That's much harder than being an entrepreneur. And I told her, and so I started talking to her, and I asked her, I said, do you have a LinkedIn profile? She goes, no, I think I'm too young. I said, no, you're not too young. You need to do that right now, and you need to start connecting to those that are in that industry, specifically the ones that are teaching and training and working with young people, you need to get noticed, my dear. And so her mother was taking copious notes, and she wants to go to Juilliard. And I told her, I said, so check out the alums on LinkedIn who went to Juilliard and what that school really is, and then some of the other amazing schools out there that really can help you. Don't be just narrowed in on that school because
ASU has an excellent dance program. They do. They
Mhm.
do. ASU has an excellent dance program.
Loyola, SCAD. I mean, there's some amazing programs for people that look like us in order to help us progress through. So, I think if we can get you on our schedule,
that'd be great.
we would love that. We're in session for 3 weeks from June 22nd to I think it's like July 5th or something of that nature, and then the kids have their graduation, and we're going to be right here in Los Angeles. We got our location, so we would be honored to have you talk to our kids. I think you are a breath of fresh air, and I think our children are so lost because they're not getting this from school at all, and they don't know what that next year looks, that next generation for them looks like. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah. No, we'd love to. Yeah, we'd love to do
Okay,
it.
thank
This
you.
is just
I will
this
reach out
been
to
a
you.
total it's been a total delight to have you come on. We really, I know in the next couple of weeks you're going to be pressed to start wrapping things up, to know which direction you're going to be going, but know that this is your family. This is your community. A lot of us have experience in entrepreneurship, we all came out of corporate. I truly believe that everyone should have an entrepreneurial mindset because of at-will employment. You really are on contract. You're on contract. You might have some benefits that some people don't have because you're working for a company, but at the end of the day, what we've all found is they decide how long you're going to have that, and they decide how long you're going to be there. And so again, you telling your story and all of these touch points that are the foundation. Your folks laid the foundation, and then you having all of these touch points and all of these hurdles that you achieved is exceptional. It really, because we know we're old enough to know what you're going through and what you've been through. And so let's work together because again, as you said earlier, and which we always know, the only way we can go anywhere is with community. We can only go by community. Yesterday on The View, Rahm Emanuel was on there and he talked about all of his success comes from the fact that his parents shared with them family, faith, and walking through the door. You have to have your family support. You have to have that. And what does family look like? It's not necessarily this blood. It's just like-minded individuals. Thomas Henning, you have come into a space that belongs to you. We got your back. We there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge in this crew. Emma is in the energy utility space. Bianca is an entrepreneur. Ross Pennington is an entrepreneur. Well, all of us. All of us. So
Carolyn is in finance. It's just there's a wealth of us, and there's so many
there's a
others
wealth of us who are willing
that
to
are around.
yeah,
To
willing
support
to
you.
help and support. And again, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you
thank you,
so much.
thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just impressed with such a young man that got his head on his shoulder and taking the world by storm. But the other thing is that, for the last 2 years or 4 or 5 years, whatever, scaring the daylight out of everyone with AI, getting rid of this, getting rid of this. You're not going to be viable. People are no longer viable. Only AI and machines and robots are the viable. So taking this approach from a behavioral standpoint on really what that means and taking the scariness out of it, especially for our seniors we're trying to get to embrace the whole process, is a very responsible thing to do. I think we live in such a world where scary and fear is how we operate. We have to take that out so that we can embrace whatever this new future is, just like we did computers and when they came about cell phones when they came about, all
Mhm.
of those things just made our life better, not worse. And I think AI is just one of those things as well. It's a tool, just like everything else is a tool. So how
Mhm.
do we
Mhm.
use responsibly this tool in order to be successful for our future? So thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
All right, all right.
All right.
Stephen, are you going to tell us who we have coming up for next week? Oh, you put it in the chat box.
It was
Oops. Let's see here.
Rakina, I guess.
Yeah, oh,
Rocky.
that's right. Rakina. Rakina is a writer producer, and she's doing a play about relationships that's coming up. And so she's going to talk to us about how she got into the industry and when did she start writing and why is this particular subject matter the one that she's writing about. She's young, she's married, she has a little one. And your generation, well, she might be a little bit older than you, you guys' generation. But again, Thomas, we want to thank you. And here I go. You've been deemed our neuro. Let me say it right. Our neuro
Help her out.
science specialist.
and
And you know,
doctor.
and we're covering you with prayer. We're covering you with prayer because when you're doing the Lord's work, Satan joy still gets busy. So we're just covering you. Know that we're here for you. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to reach out and let us know how things are going and keep us posted. And we need you. We need you to help us get to where we're all going. And we want to be there. Your folks on the East Coast, these are all your folks on the West Coast.
No,
Yeah,
thank
Robin,
you.
so
Thank you.
that was NURHO, right? Neuro.
I'm from Missouri. Did I say Negro science?
It's like the Greek
Negro is
NURHO.
behavioral science.
Yeah.
That's too funny. Guys, I put a couple things in the chat. So as well as for Thomas, if you guys have that burning desire to feed in and pour into some young people, we need you. Actually need some
Judges.
judges. Our competition is on May 2nd. So that link that is on that the QR code, you can sign up there. We need judges for our competition that's coming up May 2nd. Yeah, May 2nd. And then we also will need mentors and judges and for our kids as they go through that process in the summertime. So appreciate that. Also, if you guys remember, if you were here when Dr. Rachel Lyria was here talking about her book talk on Black capitalists. She has been traveling. Yesterday, she was in Amsterdam. This month, she's going to be in Ghana talking about her book on Black capitalism. I am so proud of her, but she was on Albert Valchi's NSNBC episode. And, he and Stephanie are major economists have been on MSNBC for a long time. So, I mean, she's made the big times out there. So her book is flying off the shelf. Another young person who went into, I think she's a stockbroker as well, wasn't she? Isn't she? At
She worked for Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs as well. Yeah. So, and so now this is what she's doing, talking about, and people are always questioning her. Are there such things as Black capitalists? Renee and I went to see her over at the gathering spot. That was the very first time I was called an elder. I wasn't quite sure how I felt about that.
And I'm older than she is.
I was a little taken aback with the elder thing, but it was respectful.
Elder's better than old.
It was, but Renee and I were the oldest people in the whole room.
But they listened to us.
They did listen to us. They did listen to us.
One note on the gathering spot, they closed that place. They're looking for a new site now because they had some problems with the landlord and promises and things. So they're moving. They will be back.
I heard the same thing. I think Pip's just closed because of some issues with the landlord. I thought Pip had bought that I thought he had bought that building, but I heard that he had not. And so I saw yesterday he closed down. He'd been in our community what for how do you know, Joseph?
16.
16 years,
16
16
years,
years.
and it
Yeah.
was a really
16.
nice place to go have brunch and to listen to live music. But I don't know if he's looking for another place. All I know is yesterday he was taking out anything that he put in there. He was taking it with him. So, so
All
those
right,
are
you
the things we
guys.
have to support our businesses, guys, because it's so very important. Thomas put his information in the chat, so grab it, guys. Also, what else did I put in the chat? An
Did you put your
astronaut, black
flyer in there?
astronaut. I did. Black
Okay.
astronaut went up to they set off just a little while ago, I believe. Victor. So follow him, guys. So that's what we gotta do, uplift our own folks. And with that, we will see you all next week. I am going to take us off of live recording. But we want to thank you for joining us, and please come back next week. And I will take us off Facebook. So if you guys have anything you want to say that is off the record in the back room, you are more than welcome to
Thomas,
before we.
Thomas, when are your doors opening to your new business?
We're open.
Oh, you are open.
Yeah, we actually are incorporated. We just started, we have a product that's working. We're trying to get our first few clients. We have a few people that we've been working with, but yeah, we're looking for our first few clients and investments. Yeah.
Tell
That's
us
cool.
about your
Hey,
product.
Crystal, we're still live and still recording.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you just said we got off.
I understand that. That's why I'm bringing it up, Renee.